Learning how to conduct a successful interview can go a long way into helping you understand the overall research process. Interviewing is a basic form of research. Essentially, research is asking questions and finding answers. Good research means asking the right questions, not just having any questions out there or agree or disagree questions. Many students believe that research is about finding a whole lot of guys that agree with you, but there's a great deal more to doing research than that. And a good interview will do more than just give you answers to the questions of what you already like. You should aim to get more information than you can use. You know that your interview has gone well if you have more material than actually will fit in your paper or your project. You also should understand that interviewing is a lot more effective if you see it as a process that's within your writing process. Just like research is a process within your writing process. You will do a great deal better if you are able to see that process rather than just show up, ask a few questions, and let things go. It also helps before we get into that process to understand the types of people that we might interview or interviewees. We categorize them into a little bit, then that might help us to understand the kinds of questions that we might come up with as we ask and help us to gather the information that we think we can best get. One kind of interviewee is a subject matter expert. That's someone who has a lot of experience, maybe because of a job or because of certain other things, but mostly because they've studied that. They have a particular job that causes them to have knowledge in an area where most of us do not have that specialized knowledge. For example, a pediatrician is someone with specialized knowledge about children and children's health and problems that arise there and how to help that person, whereas most of us don't necessarily have all that kinds of information. A person of experience, on the other hand, is someone who's probably gone through a specific kind of experience or several kinds of related experiences that connect to your topic, or they're members of a group in some way, formally or informally, that's associated with the subject that you are writing about. So, for example, a mother who has cared for a sick child may not have the specialized knowledge that a pediatrician has, but certainly has experience taking care of children and having to wrestle with all the problems of helping one sick child get better while getting other children to school and all the other problems that may happen. A person on the street interview is not really something set up with either kind of person, but oftentimes you see those things on television where a random person gets picked just asking their opinion or ideas. They may have no knowledge on the subject, no experience with the subject in particular, but sometimes people will do several of those kinds of things where they only ask one or two questions. It gives a kind of poll-like feel to a paper that you might be working on. Before you conduct your interview, you need to get permission from the person you would like to talk to. Even if you're talking to a friend who doesn't mind you just dropping by, it's always a good idea to make sure that they are available, because it's important that that person can give you his or her undivided attention. Sit down and talk about what you're going to do before that. Set the parameters for the interview. Give them a time to meet, a place to meet, something that is free from distraction, so that you don't get yourself in trouble in the middle of the interview because that person can't answer fully and completely. Tell them about the topics to be covered, what you're going to ask them about. You don't need to necessarily give them all the questions or anything like that, but ask if they actually know something about that topic or have certain experiences. Many students will set up an interview with someone and then find out when they get there that the person really doesn't have the kind of information that they need. Telling them about the topics ahead of time helps them also to think about their experiences or their knowledge and become prepared. It helps to let the person you're talking to know your purpose. Even if it's merely writing a paper for school, know what you're trying to accomplish, because that may also help them to answer your questions in a way that best helps you get information. It's always a good idea to ask about recording devices. Some people do not like to be recorded; they don't feel comfortable with that. And if you just pop out a tape recorder or a video camera, they might not be very amenable to that. So it's always good to ask if that's all right, if you want to use something like that. You want the person you interview to feel as comfortable as possible. Uh, you should prepare before you do an interview. Don't just show up, ask questions off the top of your head, because chances are really good that, like a lot of conversations, you'll think of things you should have asked later on, rather than ask the kinds of questions that are going to help you. You want to make sure you know something about your subject, whether it's the person you're going to talk to. If that person, for example, is a subject matter expert, learn a little bit about that person. Learn a little bit about the general subject if it's something that you are not very familiar with, so that the interviewee doesn't have to spend a great deal of time educating you on that topic. Take the time to write down your questions ahead of time, because if you don't, you're likely to get off track. You're likely not to ask all the things that would give you the best information. And remember, that's one of your goals, is to get information. Revise those questions. See if you've asked the question twice, for example, in different words, or make sure your questions come in an order so that you can best keep your interviewee comfortable, and also get that interviewee to give you all the information that they can give you and not have to backtrack with that material. It is important during your interview to take good notes, even if you are recording it. Chances are good that the tape could mess up, or the batteries die. There's no telling what can go wrong with technology, so always take good notes just in case. Try not to get sidetracked. I found in my own experience that many people like to talk about themselves, and in great detail sometimes. And it's real easy, particularly if you're talking to someone you already are friends with or comfortable with, to get into a longer, involved conversation that doesn't necessarily apply to what you're doing. But try to stick to your main questions. Don't be afraid to follow up a question or ask for something you don't understand, but try to stick to your a time limit as best as you can, because this person's giving you of their time, and you want to respect it. It should go without saying, but you should show that you're paying attention. Your body language has a great deal to do with how comfortable the person is who is answering your questions. And even if you're writing about something that doesn't particularly excite you, you still have the job of gathering information. And so if you look like you're bored when they're talking about something very important to them, that's going to show up. Many interviewees will shut down, or they will not answer questions as thoroughly as they could, and thus you lose valuable information. Consider that if you are interviewing someone who is a subject matter expert, that person has certainly read books, articles, knows about websites that have more information about the subject you're looking for. But even if you're talking to someone who has had it's just their experience. You're relying on only their personal experiences. That person may very well know another person with similar experiences or with a contrary experience that might be worth the trouble of asking about. It's important to ask about following up with somebody, whether it's okay to schedule, say, a second interview or maybe email that person so that if you have more questions or if you need to clarify anything that you have heard that person say, you can do that. You don't want to be intrusive, but you want to be able to follow up if possible. And it's always important to thank a person for their time. They have given you something very valuable. And even if it's your best friend, that person is doing you an important favor and giving you information you can use. After your interview, it is important that you write some things down before, as soon as you can before you forget much of what has gone on in the interview. Even if you are one that takes very good notes, very organized notes, it's easy to forget certain things that have happened during the interview, such as body language or tone of voice. Oftentimes, if a student waits too long to write things down, even if it's merely a summary of what you've got, or putting your notes into an order that you can use, or figure out where it can go into your paper, a lot of things get forgotten, and it's real easy to then have essentially no information. It's kind of like reading a book and then forgetting what the book was about. It's helpful to look up pertinent information, particularly if you have spoken with a subject matter expert. That subject matter expert may guide you to a website or to a book or an article that could be useful to you. It's also important to get clarification about things that you miss or misunderstood. It's easy when you're taking the notes to feel that everything makes sense, but then when you go over those notes later on, something doesn't quite sound correct or right, and you're not sure. There's some gaps in the information that you need to fill in. It's also important to take some time to think about how you're going to use that information. One doesn't just give a transcript of the interview and leave it as it is. There are a couple of ways to do that. There are many different ways. There's not a right or a wrong way, actually, but there are two general methods. One would be to give your introduction and thesis, give the bulk of your interview information as you have it, adding details or material as you need it. Then a section of the paper where there is other supporting material, things that develop your thesis, and then a conclusion. Another way is to, of course, start with your introduction and thesis and quote from your interview from point to point, wherever you have a supporting point or an idea that you are dealing with. As appropriate, pull in a quote from the interview or information from your interview to help support or develop that idea. All writing involves choices, and writing with an interview is no different. You have to choose what kinds of questions to ask. You have to choose which answers are going to best suit your needs in a paper. You have to choose how you're going to gather and organize and arrange that information. But consider that your purpose, what you plan to do with the overall paper, your audience who's reading it, and the rhetorical context of the project, all three of these things should drive those choices and help you decide what to do and not to do. Also, keep in mind that honesty and fairness make a great deal to do with your credibility. You don't want to lose credibility with a reader because you appeared to not be fair or honest. It doesn't mean you have to agree, of course, with everything an interviewee says or believes, but you do need to give the appearance of credibility so that your reader will buy everything